What's going on, guys? It's Thursday night. That means it is the Bolo live stream. As always, welcome. I am your host. This is my channel. This is Simpleman's Comics. Name is Brian Wood. And as always, I have my co-host here from comicbookinvest.com, the original content manager, and aka Mr. Bolo, Jack DeMeo. Jack, go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on, everybody? As Brian said, my name is Jack DeMeo, a.k.a. Mr. Bolo, and been a real exciting week in comics. A lot going on at comicbookinvest.com, and I'm real excited to do my favorite part of the week, and that's be right here on Simpleman's Comics and talk comics with you guys.
Right. So, as you may have noticed, we did not coordinate it, but we actually both have the same shirt on. We got some Simpleman's Comics love we're repping, but
Yeah.
So, also, I kind of said like I said something else there. But we got people starting rolling to the chat. Just wanted to touch on it. As you might have seen at the beginning of this live stream, we had a short trailer for one of the articles on comicbookinvest.com. A lot of people are asking if it's a video. It's not a video. It was just a trailer for the article that people are well aware of. We've kind of talked about it. But if you aren't, Jack DeMeo and myself have taken on the Wednesday 1 article on comicbookinvest.com. It goes up late Tuesday nights for Wednesdays, and I'm getting a reconnect on Jack, so we're getting to get him back in just a second. But I was just talking about the Wednesday 1. We covered the Wednesday 1, and I talked briefly about the Hot 5 article. You want to give the sum up on the Hot 5 that's up there right now?
Yeah, so it's perfect timing right now with Captain Marvel obviously opening this weekend. So Ben C., the owner of comicbookinvest.com, dropped a quick Hot 5. It's kind of the Hot 5 keys of Captain Marvel, a.k.a. Carol Danvers. You've got a couple honorable mentions in there. And it's kind of something we're looking to do more often and drop these like little small, out-of-nowhere kind of Hot 5s from Ben C., that will play into upcoming media drops and media releases. Look for movies and big TV releases. So that's something that we're looking to do more in the future. We've heard from the community. You guys like that, and we're definitely looking to do more of that. And if you were on comicbookinvest.com today, you may have noticed that Ben C. also dropped a little extra special feature. With news today about Suicide Squad 2 coming out, that James Gunn has replaced, apparently, Will Smith with Idris Elba, and we now know the cast of Suicide Squad, not the actors yet, but the actual characters who will make up the Suicide Squad. And there is this feature on comicbookinvest.com talking about who those characters are and what first appearances you should be looking out for right now. So that's a major Bolo article and something you should definitely check out on comicbookinvest.com. And we appreciate the owner, Ben C., his hard work for everything he does to actually go and add some content on the site. The guy's definitely stretched in, so we appreciate all his hard work.
Yes. So, as we just discussed, Hot 5 articles up on the site. We also discussed the Wednesday 1. Put that graphic up there real quick. And, as always, this show is brought to you from Nick Dwortman at slabbedheroes.com. Definitely check him out. As always, I've said plenty. Great, guaranteed 9/8 at a great price, and shipping is phenomenal. Just be aware. I know a lot of people put us on his site. He doesn't send them. He has some graded books, but majority of them, he sends them in to get graded when you send the order in. So, if you're doing Fast Pass, he has the turnaround times on there, roughly 4 to 5 weeks, and if you're doing regular grading, he asks you to hold, 8 to 10 weeks. So just be aware of that. And one real quick last announcement before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show. We talked about it. A lot of people don't like to watch videos, or they're driving, or they're on a commute. So we are proud to say that this show is available audio only as a podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. So they're up there. They're available now. The last 2 episodes are on there. And before we get into this, I seem kind of out of sorts. I've been out of town all week for work. Yes, this isn't my full-time job. I have a full-time job on top of this. So I've been in Virginia Beach up until I got home about 2 hours ago. was able to put the stuff together for the pre-production, the graphics, the pictures, everything together for tonight's show, and then jump on here with Jack. So bear with me if it's a little more unorganized than normal. It's definitely my fault because it's been a crazy week. I was down there at Oceana. I don't know if anyone's out of Naval Air Station Oceana. I was down there for cybersecurity conference talks. That's about as much as I can say about it. But Jack, did you have a good week?
Yeah, man, it was it was pretty smooth other than coming off of last week, myself and my oldest being sick. You know how big families go. Now the youngest is sick, so it just kind of passes along. So we're still kind of fighting getting those bugs out of the house, but other than that, it's been pretty smooth. Work was can't complain. They didn't have to deal with what you had to deal with this week, so.
I did enjoy being back in Virginia Beach. I lived in Virginia Beach from like 96 to 2008, so a lot of nostalgia there. Did run into a couple old friends. If anyone's from Virginia Beach area, 757, right, area code. I used to work at a bar there years ago, many moons ago, called Peabody's. So I ran in, talked to the owner there, had a good time. But glad to be back. Glad to talk about some comics. And we got more people coming into the chat. We got Walt Parrish. We got Rantor Tim, Retro Tech, Andy Tomlin, Nick Dwortman even. So what the plan is right now, next Thursday, to have Nick on the show. Nick Dwortman, in case you didn't know, does own SlabbedHeroes.com. So we're going to try to get him. It's going to be different. We're going to try to do some planning ahead of time because it'll be the first time having 3 people on the show. So try to keep technical difficulties to a minimum.
But it'll definitely be cool to hear from a retailer perspective what he's seeing on New Comic Book Day.
Right. So, with that being said, the whole purpose of the show, right, is the Bolo list. And this week is different. There's no trade report this week. We've discussed. We'll probably have some more announcements unless Jack wants to talk about it going forward here tonight. But we're gonna make that a separate piece of content just so this show doesn't get elongated too much, and we can just stick directly to the Bolo list. Correct, Jack?
Yeah. So we're really happy with the trade report and how it's done. We think it provides excellent value to the community. Reading comics is essential. But we wanted to separate it from the Bolo list. We wanted to shorten the time of this show, keep this about what it is, and provide a separate piece of content. And we're going to expand on it. So it'll have more books, more information, pricing, and more importantly, some of those links that can get you those great deals on Amazon right here on the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that in the coming weeks.
All right. Someone in Comic Sam in the chat's asking about what about CBSI hat in previous videos. Couldn't find any on their site. Make sure you go into CBSISwag.com for that. I believe they even just added some beanies.
Yeah, I just saw that. They look real dope.
So, but definitely, it's not going to be on comicbookinvest.com. Make sure you check out CBSISwag.com. And also let us know how's the audio, how's the video. If we need to make adjustments on the fly, which we did previously. We lost Jack for a minute. We brought him back with some pixie dust.
Had to make a quick moves.
But, so, Bolo list this week. As always, if this is your first time on the show, if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future shows or other comic and pop culture related content on my channel. And if you could also, make sure you smash that like button for us. And even better, share this video with your friends. Share this link out. Get your friends in this conversation. Let's talk about comic books. Because we don't want to just sit here and talk to ourselves. We love the conversation in the live chat. And then we did have a recommendation to change our faces from Sleepy John. I'll work on that. I'll do
that's what the audio version is for.
Yeah, that's what the audio version is for.
Right. My mother always said I had a face for radio.
So, yeah. But the Bolo list, we start off, we go through confirmed first appearances for the week, reader buzz for the week, variant buzz, and then Jack always has a long-term play. So, also, disclaimer, just because we're first appearances or buzz, we're not telling you to run out and you're going to make a bunch of money off these comics. We're just letting you be aware of topics from the Bolo list. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's just letting you know what we are hearing on social media as the two individuals who run the social media for CBSI. Brian's greatly involved with Simpleman's Comics. I'm doing the IG and the Twitter for CBSI, and we get opportunity to see a lot, and we just want to share with the community what we are seeing as far as the buzz, what people are talking about. And a lot of times that can indicate success, but it is not a direct list telling you what to buy. You should most certainly buy what you like.
Definitely. Number one commandment, always buy what you like. But let's get into it. First appearances for the week. When you have the first appearances of, was it the Whamers?
Yeah, was it Whamers, Warners?
Warners?
Yeah. So
I'm
you
old,
get
man, my eyes are bad.
a Skrull family. So this one is kind of interesting. Meet the Skrulls #1. The regular issue, you're not seeing any secondary market heat on. We'll talk later about some of the subsequent variants, but you get the first appearance of a Skrull family, and it's a family that is adapting into life in America. It kind of has a Vision, kind of the Vision family vibe to it. I think it's why it's attractive to speculators. What will come of this family long term? You really don't know. This is a long-term play. I don't think it's something that will spike in the short term. If you really look, there's never been specific, Skrulls other than, the OG big dogs who have really popped on the market. So you're not going to have just on it being a Skrull and Skrulls being in the MCU be something that's important. It all kind of depends on where this family goes and what we end up. Do we get more stories and does the popularity and buzz build? But that's the great thing about New Comic Book Day, because you get the opportunity to get in at cover price, get in at the ground floor. I think there's still copies of Meet the Skrulls at most LCSs. So, it's gotten solid reader buzz as well. So I think it's something worth checking out, not something I would go heavy on. But it's something I'm looking forward to reading.
Right. So, yeah, I've been pretty much detached from comics since I was in Virginia Beach. I was trying to make it to, what is it, King Comics down there?
Yeah.
Never got away. There was one rental car between four of us. So, yeah, I tried to sneak away, even try to get friends to come pick me up, but didn't quite make it. Next on there, for first appearances, you had Deadpool #10. Is what? First appearance of Good Night.
Right. First appearance of Good Night. So I'll give you kind of my perspective as a speculator when I hear that there's a first appearance in a Deadpool book. It's kind of like one of those "you've burned me before" situations. Deadpool doesn't tend to run in the pack of the typical Marvel universe within the comics. So the characters that are featured in Deadpool comics haven't traditionally crossed over, haven't traditionally become characters that have hit and become secondary market winners. A lot of speculators went down that rabbit hole with the Mercs for Money and some of the various characters within them, from Fool Killer to Madcap, and it didn't really pan out. So a lot of times, I think, like we've talked about in previous weeks, you have a tendency to kind of go with what you know. And that made me kind of skittish looking at a Deadpool first appearance. But here we have a villain. Something very graphic happens in the issue. Don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't gotten a chance to read yet. I haven't read the issue yet. I actually read a spoiler. But the character's name is Goodnight. He is a villain. And we are actually seeing early secondary market pops. Most listings on eBay are for about $8.99, $9.99 plus shipping. I don't know that there's an incredible demand for it, but it looks like cover price issues have dried up on the internet. So it's something that I would say is probably worth what I like to call a cover price clear out, meaning that if you're at your LCS and you see it for cover price, it's probably worth just grabbing and socking away. You shouldn't leave those on the shelf for cover price, just judging by what we're seeing already on the secondary market. But it's definitely another one of those, it's been a day, time will tell the importance of the character. But the events of the issue are getting some media buzz, so it's possible we could see a greater bump going down the road.
Right. I do want to give a shout out to Anna Tomlin for the super chat. Case one thing I don't know if you guys noticed on the screen, I did add a little fun to the channel. So now when super chats come in, you get the good old, well, it's not Stifler, but he's in there saying yes, and so definitely appreciate that. He says, "Love what you guys are doing. Keep it up. Least I can do when y'all take the time to do all this. Much respect." Danny Tomlin, as we always say, he's also the author of the Indie Spotlight article on comicbookinvest.com, which you keep hearing us saying that URL a lot. But if you're a fan of indie books, definitely check him out. I also want to give a shout out. We have in here Beyond the Blast Doors. I did a Tuber Tuesday little spotlight video. If you are a Star Wars fan, definitely check out Beyond the Blast Doors here on YouTube, and they also have their podcast on iTunes as well. And if you check them out on iTunes, please make sure you also leave a review for them because it definitely helps them out. But Andy, thank you so much for the super chat, much appreciated. Going in that after Deadpool number 10, we had Domino Hot Shots number 1, right? Which
Right,
is
so
your favorite type of first appearance?
Right, a team book, right? You know. Now, so obviously we've talked about this before. Team books don't tend to carry water in the secondary market. I know that pre-release we had the confirmation of the team hotshots. We had word there would be a villain in the issue. It looks like there was a first appearance of a villain in the issue. So there's that. Maybe those two things combined make it worthy of taking a look at. I think the print run will be a little higher because of the J. Scott variant. Most retailers took a risk and went ahead and pre-ordered 50 copies, a move that probably paid off for most retailers. But that will probably make cover A's a little bit depressed in the secondary market for a while. So it's one that you may not need to rush out immediately and grab up, but maybe something to keep your eye on during the summer convention season when dealers are feeling the need to blow out issues that aren't moving at cover price, especially if they over-ordered the issue to try to get at the J. Scott books. But the only thing that gives this team maybe a little bit more than some other teams is we know that Marvel really wants to do things with female characters. We know that they want to do something with a female team. And there's some characters that are used here that aren't typically used, and the team does kind of mesh well together. But still, team appearances just aren't something you're ever going to see me get too excited about.
Right. Ours, well, we'll get into that in a little bit. But I'll just butcher his name, so I'm just going to read his question in the chat. He's asking, do you think this will last longer than her solo issues?
With the series, I
Yeah.
doubt it. I mean, I doubt the series will last that long.
Right.
You can get attention for a series by soliciting a hot cover artist for issue 1, but how are you going to maintain that? And it's interesting because, like, we got comments on comicbookinvest.com on the Wednesday one where somebody said, this should be about speculation. What people want to read doesn't matter. And what people want to read absolutely matters with speculation, because if they're not reading something, they're not buying it on a monthly basis, then it's going to go away. It's not going to be there. So will they have to gimmick this series with lots of ratio variants that people want to buy in order to sell issues, or will people get into this series? Time is going to tell. Marvel doesn't have a great track record with that kind of stuff, though.
Right. So, yeah, I tried to look because I didn't see any news that. Well, I didn't sound like I looked too hard, but so did they? I guess they canceled her series for this Hot Shots, because I don't see any solicitations for another Domino issue coming out in the near future.
Yeah, I think they canceled her.
Yeah, because they were canceling a couple series, I think, just because of the whole rumorville that's been going around with Marvel and DC Comics and cutting distribution. But either way, next on your list for first appearances, you had Justice League number 19. And that's the first appearance of future Justice League, correct?
Correct. So you got a future team, which is like double uninteresting to me. So, so it's a team, but it's essentially just a version of the team that already exists.
Yeah.
You're not going to get me hyped for that. I hardly even call it a first appearance. If we were talking about like an old man version, I could maybe get down with that. I slept on Harley Quinn, and we see what's happened with that series. So if you were talking about that, but that's not really what we're talking about. DC's barely been able to push Batman Beyond as a sustainable character, and that's basically the only future character they've ever had that's really truly been sustainable. I don't think that you're going to see any mention of this team beyond the next few weeks. So the next few months, as maybe some of the stories play in. But we want to mark it, and it's one of those books we want to put on the list, but certainly not one personally I would advocate from a spec perspective to lean into.
Right. And I noticed we can actually talk about it because you don't have it in your variant buzz, but the Rob Liefeld cover, right?
Right.
Um,
There's another one that, though, is kind of selling out. It makes me wonder, is there a demand for it? Or did dealers just kind of like laugh off Rob Liefeld DC variants? I expected that first Superman one to be popular. I didn't expect there to be some popularity here, and then it looks like his next one is got some popularity, so it's really kind of funny. I don't know that we're going to see like booms in the secondary market, but these kind of books may be $8 convention books, that you could pick up for $3. It's kind of funny.
you want to know what title I want to see Liefeld to do a cover B of?
What's that?
Deathstroke.
Oh, man. Let me tell you something. That one I'll pre-order heavy. If he does a Deathstroke cover, I'm pre-ordering the heck out of that.
Wonder if he knows how to draw him. Oh, I made the suit red. But, yeah.
He had to start over a bunch.
So, next one in, last in the first appearance category this week, and that was Curse of Brimstone, number 12.
Right. This one is probably the hardest one. If I was going to give you, say, spec advice, you're looking at the first appearance of Infernal. You're looking at the last issue in a series. Curse of Brimstone is a series that came from the DC New Age of Heroes. It was part of DC's initiative to bring in new characters. The series haven't done exceptionally well. Silencer is really the only series that has gotten kind of some buzz. There's definitely some reader buzz on Silencer, and I previously boloed Silencer number 1. We also saw Silencer appear on Arrow, which sadly was announced will be ending this coming year. But I think that there's more of Silencer in the future. But Curse of Brimstone is ending. We don't know. It wasn't a popular series. It ran 12 issues. We don't know yet kind of what is going to happen beyond this series. So we don't know what any of the characters, where we're going to see them play out. I don't have necessarily high hopes, but it's one of those things that you always have to keep an eye out for, because we're seeing more and more creators mining for old characters and pulling characters from other stories. So you kind of never know with that, but even that's being optimistic. So, it's probably not one that you need to worry about right now, unless, you're reading the series or this is something, you've been enjoying.
Right. I know I read, like the first 3 issues and then kind of just fell off of it. Usually not because of loss of interest. It's more like not enough time in the day to read all the titles you want to read, or something new and shiny comes out and you go chasing it, right?
Right, and that's why I think I want to read the trade of a lot of these New Age of Heroes that maybe I didn't get a chance to check out. I did the same with that who's the Doomsday looking guy? Kind of like their Hulk character. I forgot what his name is, but
Savage, Ravage, Rampage.
Yeah, I read the first couple issues and fell off. I'd like to go sit down and read through that. I didn't read all of Silencer, so I'd like to read that. So, I think that those will be interesting reads. And that's where, again, I think reading is important, because if you sit down and read a whole series, especially series that aren't being read, you have a better idea of whether something is adaptable whether something can later play into something else. And I cannot stress enough the value of reading comics to speculators. It's absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, I like it when I go back and read stuff I haven't read in a while, and I think I found something. I haven't. I was like, this might be a new character, and then I'd researched the character. I was like, oh no, it's not new at all. I just ignorant to it. But so that wraps up first appearances. I did want to go back in the chat when we were talking about Domino Hot Shots. Nick Dworkman from Slabbed Heroes, he wrote in there that he picked up, what did he say? Picked up 1,000 of them. He ordered 1,000. And he said the 1 in 50 is creeping up to $100, and he completely sold out of his 9/8 pre-orders on that. So it'll be interesting to watch those.
That's why we need Nick on the show, because one thing I like about Nick, and not to be like, and I don't want you guys to think we're like over promotional, because one thing about me and Brian is, if we're gonna tell you about somebody, it's somebody that we believe in. So that's why you've heard us talk about, say, some of our people on comicbookinvest.com, like Andy and the Indie Spotlight series. You've heard us talk about Comic Tom and his YouTube channel, or Comics with Bueller. One thing I like about Nick is he is a speculator at heart, and you don't see that from retailers. So he makes moves early, and the way he orders and the way he brings things in. Some of his offerings lately of Immortal Hulk product have been incredible. You don't see anyone on the market offering those kinds of books at those prices. So that's another reason to really check out Slabbed Heroes, is if you're having trouble getting some of those hot books. Nick is kind of ahead of the game, and he's had those books at great prices. So I can't say enough the value of checking out Nick at Slabbed Heroes.
Also, what did I say? Rampage, Savage, Ravage. It's the correct name for that title was Damage.
and I was like, yeah, Rampage. That sounds great.
Yeah.
In my head, I was like, I don't think so, but it's close.
Yeah, I remember I went back and like a month after release, I went back and bought like five issues of #1 just because I'd like the premise. At first, I thought it was a total Hulk ripoff, but I actually enjoyed the first couple issues, and I went back and bought a few more. But evidently,
yeah, that's another book I've got probably 5 or 10 copies sitting in a long box waiting. Was the Damage book.
Yeah, but I sound like an a-hole because I can't even remember the title. So, yeah. But so now we're gonna get into the Reader Buzz section, and kicking off Reader Buzz, Black Hammer 45 #1.
Right, so I'm going to be real transparent and say I did not read this book, so I don't have a lot of information on the book itself. And if anyone in the chat has any information, was it good? Let us know. Black Hammer was something I slept on, and I'll tell you why. Brian and I have talked about this before. Dark Horse has been just the companies out there, the bigger dogs for most speculators. I know that lately they've had some hits, but like we've said, you kind of go with what you know, and once you get that bad taste in your mouth about something, you fade off of it. So when Black Hammer originally came out, while I liked that kind of like homage cover that Lemire did, it seemed like Lemire was everywhere. He was releasing things all over the place. So it wasn't something that I was looking at as a serious spec play. And boy, were we wrong. And we look at the way that everything gets optioned today. And the option for Black Hammer is a little different because it's a television and film option. There is an option within the option for them to make multiple pieces of content. And Black Hammer has been released kind of like we talked about last week, Mignola style, where we have various miniseries within the Black Hammer universe. So now we've created this giant universe. And I think everybody's been real heavy on Black Hammer #1 as kind of first appearance of everything. And it is the first appearance of probably most of those key characters, but as we expand this Black Hammer universe, I think a lot of these issues are going to be key. So looking at some of these mini-series coming out, I think not only has it had consistent reader buzz because those who have read it have championed the book. I know that Dan Piercy from the comicbookinvest.com reading pile is a big Black Hammer fan. So I think that the books will always stay relevant for that reason. But as far as a speculation reason, it's something to keep an eye on. Just because it's a volume 3 or a volume 4 of a Black Hammer series doesn't mean that it's something you should sleep on, because we could see a multitude of Black Hammer related content hit some form of media very soon, and I would bank on it.
Right. So I read the first 6 issues of the Black Hammer. Right. Uh, what drove me to it was Jeff Lemire was writing it, and it was like his take on the superhero genre. So I enjoyed it. I again, it was one of those ones that just kind of dropped off, not from lack of interest, just lack of time to read books, and hope to go back and pick it up, read it in trade or read it online. But it did start. It was one of those ones that not right off the bat, the true Lemire fans liked it, but it started gaining comic book reader clout, or I can't even think of the right word. I'm just freaking exhausted. But it started growing and getting more popular as it went on. And then they started with the last series, and then this one as well. But
you get almost that mainstream crossover buzz, that kind of Saga, Walking Dead, Why the Last Man vibe. So I definitely feel what you're saying there.
And this is another one. If you do the Dan Piercy method, if you're trying to sell them, they do sell really well in sets. If you're selling
to elaborate on that, I don't know if we've mentioned that before, but Dan Piercy, one thing he likes to do, the writer of the reading pile, is, as he reads these issues, when he finishes, he'll compile the books together and sell them as sets. And he has oftentimes done extremely well with that. You can either get a portion of your money back, or oftentimes, especially on hot runs, significantly more. And it allows you to, by bundling, sell some of those dead issues that previously you wouldn't be able to sell kind of in between the keys. So that's definitely a major bolo for a way to kind of sell things, rather than, we always talk about buying things, but it's a good sales strategy to kind of bundle runs together. So if you're, you ever looking to list something different, go back into your long boxes and look at some of your reading runs that you're kind of done reading, and put some of those runs up together.
Sorry, still mourning that the Redskins are going to be getting Case Keenum, but either way, way off topic there. Next, in your reader buzz, which to me this was one of the titles I was definitely looking forward to picking up this week, and that's Cosmic Cosmic Ghost Rider destroys Marvel history.
I think this is the one most of us, I'd say, kind of guys of a certain age were excited about. Aside from the Cosmic Ghost Rider angle, the fact that it was written by Paul Scheer, who's if you're going to bring an actor to work on a book, he's somebody who is extremely popular with kind of, a young crowd, kind of like the 20s, 30s, early 40s type crowd. He was real popular on FX and then FXX, whatever ridiculous thing that is. The League, obviously at the height of like fantasy football.
Yeah, Andre.
Right, Andre Nozick or Andre Nodick. Yeah. He was. So you get it. He's a great character actor. He's funny in everything he's in. So I've been really excited to read this. It's one of those series I want to wait to the end to read the trade, but I kind of can't wait. So I pre-ordered some of the various covers of issue 1. One thing we just talked about, Dan's strategy. I talked about in previous weeks, Mill Geeks, Russ Bright, who's on the Hot 10 videos. He will pre-order some of these mini-series specifically to build into sets. It's something I've started to do, so it's something that I did with this series. But I don't think I'm going to be able to wait till the end. I can't wait till issue 1 comes in to like receive it and to read it. I think it's going to be fun. So let me know in the chat if you guys are liking it. How is he doing? I think that some of the non kind of traditional comic book writers have done a good job. I enjoyed Brian Posehn's work on Deadpool. I like CM Punk's work with Drax. I thought the Drax series was really fun. So I've enjoyed some of those kind of crossovers, especially when they're outside of the regular Marvel universe where they're not going to mess anything up.
So do you think there's any like the big? Make sure you don't have it. All right, it's not in your variant, but so I can talk about it.
Right.
So the big, what is it? The 1 in 50 Jerome Pena variant, right? Which is the bigger picture on and what's on the screen. I'm a big fan of Jerome Pena, but I don't want to pay $50. My personal opinion might be a great story, but I don't see a whole lot of spec to it. So I think that 1 in 50, you can find it a little bit down the road for cheap.
Right. I think if you want to make any money on this series, I don't think there's going to be any spec in it. It's a comedy series outside of continuity. I think the money to be made on this series is going to be selling sets. If the reader buzz is strong enough, I think you'll be able to make money on sets because people will want to complete the set. Individual incentives, I would honestly expect to be below ratio because there isn't the spec tied into it. Having said that, I think there's a lot of them that are really nice. I think they'll always be in some semblance of demand. And another thing we've talked about before, convention, live sales. When I'm at conventions, I'm seeing more and more young people. Young people are looking for these younger characters. They're looking for Cosmic Ghost Rider. They're looking for Miles Morales. They're looking for X-23. They're looking for Spider-Gwen. And, this is the kind of stuff that they're going to look for. And if it's something to kind of a Bolo to be on the lookout for some of these incentives to see if in the coming months, if they end up on any sale lists and if there's ever any opportunities to pick them up cheap.
Right. I will say also, depending on how much more popularity Cosmic Ghost Rider garners, I think it'll dip and you can get it for kind of cheap. But if that Cosmic Ghost Rider catches fire, those Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe books, some of those go for decent money.
Exactly.
You get it for cheap and then hold it, and there might be a time down the road where they pick up some steam, and then you could sell it off there for a profit. But time will tell.
Yeah, if you're at
don't buy it.
If you're at a convention in the dead of summer, this is the kind of stuff you find on discount. This is the kind of stuff dealers are trying to cover bills. They got, the next big Marvel miniseries coming out that they've got to pay for. So this is the kind of stuff I like to pick up around June, July on clearance.
Yes, on clearance at Ross.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, listen, if you know me, you know I am a clearance hustler. I will raid a Midtown dollar sale.
I picked that up at the cash register in TJ Maxx. All right. Next in the Reader Buzz, we have Immortal Hulk number 14.
This book, I think, is the antithesis of what the Reader Buzz category is. Not only did it have buzz because it is continuing probably the hottest series Marvel has going, hands down the hottest series, let's just call it. No disrespect to Donny Cates. But
didn't even the B cover sell out? The Spidey villains?
Yeah, it's getting to the point where the buzz is so strong, people are just anticipating everything. I'm going to be honest. I went, and I've been doing cover price clearouts online of anything Immortal Hulk. If I'm seeing any of the cover Bs, I agree with you, Brian. I'm not a big fan of cover Bs that are outside of the theme of the series. But in the last few years, have we ever seen a Marvel series just organically reader buzz like this to the point of the spiking of almost every issue in the run? I don't know. And it's
Donny
getting
Cates
to a
Thanos,
point.
but that's closest.
Yeah, probably, but it still died a little bit.
Yeah.
You basically went 13 to 18, so you went 5 issues, and then people jumped on it once they started letting people do store exclusives at issue 17. Things changed. Which, be on the lookout. It looks like Immortal Hulk 16. There will be store exclusives. So you could see something happen with that, but this day it's something serious. So I've been going and picking up, whether it's issue 7, 9, doesn't matter. any issue in the run, if it's second prints, if it's third prints, if it's, cover Bs, I'm buying them for cover price because I just think that people are going to want them. And even if it's, a $3 to $10 flip, I'll take it. And I just think that I talk about live convention sales. I think having a box of Immortal Hulk, you can't keep Immortal Hulk in stock. So having a box of Immortal Hulk is going to be valuable. But this book, not only did it have all of that buzz we just talked about, it delivered on the buzz. Again, another book where the story advanced this issue. People are now speccing on back issues. We see 2 issues being specced heavily on. The first appearance of Red She-Hulk, which, if I'm not mistaken, is Hulk 15. Or somebody can correct me in the chat. Something 15 from 2008. I think it's Hulk or Incredible Hulk 15. And then Hulk 168 from the Volume 1 series has popped off. I can't remember the name of the character that first appears there. But it's tough because there's speculation on both sides. We're speculating on where the story is going to go with issue 15 and issue 16. But that's how popular this series is when you reach kind of that level, like where we talked about the Donny Cates series, where not only are the books popping off, but the B covers and the covers that have nothing to do with anything else are popping off. And then you have back issues popping off, and back issues popping off purely on speculation of will they play into the future of the series. So some people are going to make some money, some people are going to get burned, but that's the beauty of speculation.
Right. And of course the Alex Ross covers for the cover A's. You know what? I kind of hope they do like for 2019 they do like Alex Ross for the Marvel Masterpiece cards, and they put some of these covers in there. I see them from back in the baseball card collecting day with the binders and the sheets, like having cards for all these cover A's for Immortal Hulk on one sheet there, and you can just But
just like that Bianchi said, I think an Alex Ross set would be a game changer for Upper Deck if they did a Marvel one. Another thing to look out for is some of these Immortal Hulk covers they've done posters with. I just recently saw that. So
and short boxes.
Right. So I'm gonna be moving soon, and I'm gonna try to kind of expand my office area and kind of have a separate kind of processing and YouTube area. So one thing I was looking at was kind of posters and stuff for the wall, and I definitely want an Immortal Hulk representation on the wall.
Right. So moving on, just like Immortal Hulk has been taken off lately, the next one on the list, which is Die number 4, this is another title that is just you've seen taken off with popularity over the past few weeks. I mean, people were talking about it since release, but you've definitely seen an uptick in popularity on secondary sales, especially that freaking Virgin variant. It's going for crazy prices.
Right.
But Die number 4, reader buzz.
Right. Die number 4. We talked about the article the Wednesday one. I talked about it in my entry on the Wednesday one. And I've talked about it here week in and week out the last few weeks. It's kind of like a fool me once, shame on you thing. Like I slept on that series. It got to a point where I've heard so much buzz about it. It was like, I think as speculators, we have a tendency, if we're not in on a book when it's cover price, we tend to just say, well, I missed it. And we don't want to pay kind of what I call up the ladder, those $10, $12, $13 prices, because we feel like, I could have had it a month ago for $4. And I recently made the decision to say, forget it. I'm buying it. I don't care. $12, $13. I'm going to pay those prices. And we're seeing more and more speculators make that move. Will it pay off? Who knows? But I think that the reader buzz on this series is so strong. Having finally jumped in and read the first 3 issues, this issue was probably my most anticipated issue. I'm not a big monthly reader, so this is one of those series that's so good it's kind of frustrating me to read it piece by piece. It's got kind of like an adult, what we talked about, like a horror Jumanji, Stranger Things vibe. I just think this is going to be a hit. When this thing is adapted, whether it's movie or TV, I think this is going to be a big hit. I think you should at least, a comparable would be God Country, something of that nature, what we could see of prices. So issue number 4 definitely had kind of like I'd say the biggest reader buzz at this point, the most people on board, because they've released three printings of number 1. I think most people have gotten a chance to grab that number 1 and give it a read. So I definitely think that this is a book to keep an eye on going forward, and another book that could be very valuable to put into sets. There are some first appearances outside of issue 1, so that is something to keep a lookout for.
But do you think it's the next Walking Dead?
I think Walking Dead is choked enough that we don't have to answer that question anymore. Nothing will ever be the next Walking Dead, but at the same point, I think that's why I use that God Country comparison. It is what I said to somebody in a CBSI chat. I said, it may be 13, 15, 18 bucks for a number 1 right now, but if you're selling it for 50 bucks later, are you really going to care whether you paid 13 over 4? Probably not. You're going to be real happy with that sale. So, it may not be Walking Dead, but I think there's a good chance that it's going to be something serious. And it's also, the writing is so good. It's one of those series that if you sell early upon option announcement, you may regret it. I always advocate to sell when you can, but you may regret it because I think they've got a real great piece of content that somebody's going to be able to do something great with. So I have no doubt it will get adapted. I hope it gets adapted by somebody good. My feelings about Netflix, I think, would be the perfect place. But I hope it's something big and something good.
Yeah. Ran towards him in there, says Walking Dead can't even be the next Walking Dead.
I love that comment.
Yeah. So, last on the reader buzz, this was one of my favorites just for the parody alone, and that's Keen Spot Comics and their Fart Night number 1 parody. And had 6 different covers for it, right?
Right. Keen Spot is a publisher that wasn't on my radar a couple months ago. It seems like they popped up out of nowhere, but they've had a couple hits on their hands. They're playing this comedy game real well, and it's really been proven that parody comics do have a place. I think they're not for everybody. It's personally not my cup of tea, but parodies, and especially lowbrow humor parody, it has such a tradition in comics, Mad Magazine to comic strips from back in the day, the pulp pages and things like that. So
Garbage Pail Kids.
Right. So there's always going to be that market for these kind of books. People laugh at some of these like Trump parodies or Barack Obama parodies, but if there's a polarizing figure out there, somebody's going to parody it, and people are going to buy it, and you see that Fortnite is absolutely, it's a phenomenon.
Yes.
It was something that we kept it out of my household for the longest time. It entered my household. I was always like, I'm not going to play that game. And then when my daughter started playing it, I started playing that game. And
she start flossing. Is that what I mean?
No.
I just look like a fat guy having a seizure.
Right. No. I've seen my daughters do that all the time. I may have tried once in a mirror and said never again. Yeah. But yeah, so there's that when something becomes that polarizing, it's got a built-in audience. The move from Fortnite to Fartnite is funny, but the books didn't really pop per se in the secondary market, except we see the incentives doing really well. There was a Ninja incentive. Right. If you're not familiar, Ninja is a very popular YouTuber, Twitch video game player, streamer. So there was a funny incentive that featured Ninja getting his pants pulled down. And that seems to have popped to about $25. So if you see that one at all, and maybe your LCS isn't really familiar with the covers and it's cheap, maybe.
And it was like a secret Ninja variant, right? They didn't even release the art until like the release day. Right.
Yeah. It just had so you may actually see it at some retailers, because I know like some of the bigger retailers like Midtown and TFAW, they just had kind of like a green bar image, and it said, that the caution, they couldn't release the image. So, I think it was more because of the exposed rear end, but that ended up not even really being the thing that people talk about. People are just talking about the fact that Ninja's on the cover, and he has, this multi-millions of fans out there. And so you get that kind of crossover appeal. So if I was going to grab a cover and hope for kind of some long-term success, I'm not big on that video game world and that streaming world, but that would be the one I'd grab.
Right. And speaking of parodies with Keen Spot, in previews last month they showed they got a Trump parody. Was it like basically Batman Who Laughs, but it's
Yeah,
like
the Donald who laughs.
yeah, with Trump, with Donald on there. But and just like Fortnite, it looked like it had a bunch of covers, but some look pretty good, especially for you Batman Who Laughs and on their popularity. But they definitely pick a good niche market when they're gonna parody something. So
Right.
and they're great, like we've mentioned before. They're another one of those indie publishers that's really great on social media. But they reach back out to you, and they love hearing fans talk about them. So again, Andy Tomlin, he's running out. And another super chat, can't thank him enough. So we got the yes going on up there. Definitely helps out.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, Andy. Appreciate everything you do. Definitely the rookie of the year for comicbookinvest.com, without a doubt.
Right. Yeah, the Indie Spotlight article, he's taken that and started, and he's molded that into something that's really great read. And I'll cover some indies in weekly picks, but his articles definitely more in depth and really fun to read.
And as a content manager, I have to say that he takes kind of some advice and runs with it on social. He just crossed 400 followers. He just did a 400 follower giveaway, having built that from nothing in a very short period of time. So he's done an exceptional job. And if you're not following him on Instagram, you should, because he posts updates to each of his articles. So after he writes his article, as books are spiking, he will post updates and let you know how books are performing on the secondary market. He's also put up indie bolos exclusively on IG. So definitely somebody to check out if you're not following him on Instagram.
Right. And just all around great guy on top of it.
And I do want to comment, Gary Nusser in the chat mentioned the limited shelf life on books like Fart Night. I would definitely agree. Books like that tend to have their moment of the sun and then fade out. If you're going to make a move on a book like that, make the move quickly. The only book I would say maybe the exception to that is the Ninja variant, because having nothing to do with Fortnite, because of Ninja's immense popularity within the video game community. Which, again, is not something I'm extremely familiar with. It's just that I'm not familiar with it at all, and I know who he is. So I think a lot of people are kind of in that ballpark.
Right. And so we just wrapped up the Reader Buzz portion. Just welcome more people into the chat. You mentioned Gary Nusser. We got Suede Head 35. We have, of course, he's been in the chat, but Discovery Bay Comics, JB, definitely check out his YouTube channel if you want basically a community guide. He's going to tell you every day what's going to be on YouTube as far as comic community related content. Also, as we always say, if you do have a YouTube channel and you're in the chat, make sure you put your channel name in the chat so people in there can see it and follow you, sub you up, and eat up all your tasty comic goodness content.
Absolutely. I got to throw a plug in there for Gary. I think we talked about Topher from comicbookinvest.com. I think Topher and Gary are two of the best, I'll call them original speculators, meaning that they are true to what speculation is, not based on, well, this book has buzz, so therefore I'm going to put my money up behind that book. Guys who are truly reading books and then kind of coming up with their own theories, and these theories have paid off so often. I think that if you're not following Gary on social, you need to, because he throws out a bunch of wild stuff kind of off into the future, and not everything may hit, but it's amazing how much does. And he is somebody that some of the biggest and best speculators in the game are following, so you should definitely be following.
Also, we got Peter Reyna in the chat. He writes the Dollar Bin Digging article for Comic Book Invest. Great article.
And the Usual Suspects.
Yes, and Usual Suspects. So
So those two articles, he hits you kind of with from both sides, two angles. You get kind of that dollar bin digging, that thing that we all like to do, go in there, whether you're balling on a budget or whether you're trying to find those deals. He gives you a couple books that may not have per se popped yet on the secondary market, but have reasons why they could and should and possibly already are to an extent, but are findable. So it's definitely one to check out. And then his other article, The Usual Suspects, hits you with information on those major keys, those books that we all know about, but maybe you're not paying close enough attention to some trends involving them. So he kind of hits you with both ends of the spectrum, and that's one thing I like about Peter is, he's playing in all angles, all fields.
So with that being said, covered up some more people coming in the chat. As always, we love the conversation. We try to get questions that are coming and make sure we direct them up on the show here. And if we aren't answering your questions, there's usually someone in the chat that can. So as can't say enough good things. Love the interaction that's going on there. It's definitely why we like to have this show and get everyone involved because, as I said at the beginning and other episodes, it's better to talk to other people through chat and not just Jack and I back to back on the microphone. Especially when Jack becomes an a-hole and just leaves and loses connectivity every now and then. I have to get him back. But so with that being said, we're going to get into the variant buzz section of this Bolo list, and kicking it off was another Harley Quinn Derek Chew variant, right?
Right, yeah. So the Derek Chew kind of streak continues. And I think that this is really just indicative of, like we talk about, speculators kind of falling into patterns. Once Chew started soliciting images of various covers, the buzz started to build. But we haven't seen any of these covers truly pop on the secondary market. This cover had some of the biggest early buzz that we've seen from any of his covers, but really didn't hit on the secondary market within the last couple of days. I think that they're solid long-term plays because, again, I think the art is popular. It's the new style of art that I think the younger crowd and community likes. I think it's a key character where she's already filming a movie. We're already seeing Margaret Robbie working on Birds of Prey. So I think it's a character that's going to continue to stay in the spotlight, and these kind of variants are going to be popular. And we've talked almost every week about our belief in DC Cover Bs being solid, cheap, long-term spec. But, kind of similar to the Art Germ fatigue, I think there kind of already is a little Derek Chew fatigue because, we're getting kind of like a variant every week from him.
Right, and I actually liked the regular Gilliam March cover on this one better than the Derek Chew, which previous issue I preferred the Derek Chew cover, but yeah, it's landscape, which from our both opinions, I tend to like the landscape more than you do, but to me that Gilliam March cover, I just like the way he drew. If I want to be horrible about it, he drew Harley's booty pretty good, and I like that cover better, but either way, I did see that I lost it. I was trying to see if Midtown still had some available. Because it was weird, like we were talking about Mortal Hulk, the Spider Villains variant sold out, but they still had covers of the Alex Ross regular cover up there if you wanted to pick it up.
Right, and I think a lot of that was because they were limiting one per copy on the Ross. And on the Spider Villains, they weren't initially. And then also, they probably ordered far less of the Spider Villains, which could be something to keep a look at. Some of those kind of random cover Bs in the Immortal Hulk series is what the low printing is on them. But I don't think they'll ever have the demand the Ross covers will.
So Gary Nusser put in the chat, he brought up a good point. When I first saw a lot of Derek Chew art, I was thinking immediately Art Germ, but he also compared it to Alex Garner's art, which is actually a good point because it does have a very Garner. I still like Garner better than Chew, but definitely a good
Garner's kind of changed a bit too. Like Garner has gotten almost a bit more digital looking over the last few years. So I agree. I think Chew's looks a lot like the current work Gardner's doing.
Right.
What the Teen Titans run.
Yes, those covers is.
I think that's another set. That's another set that's going to do well. Is all those kind of Alex Garner spotlights.
Those and the Marvel Battle Lines variants, I think, would be good as sets.
Absolutely, and I think the Marvel Battle Lines variants are going to be the first series of them. it's going to be tough to go back now and piece together a lot of those. There's still a lot available for cover price, but there's several that are gone and kind of dried up.
Right. So next in the variant buzz, is this Dark Horse or IDW? I forget. Dark
What's
Horse.
it? Yeah.
Astro Hustle #1.
Yes, Dark Horse.
I almost put this in my weekly picks and then I didn't. But I like the premise of it. Go ahead and tell us about this book.
Right, it's kind of like one of those retro nostalgia feels. Another book I'm not exceptionally familiar with. Didn't get a chance to read it yet. I pre-ordered it because it looked like an interesting read. I think the cover that I was interested in, the one that I pre-ordered, is that cover B, which is the reason why we're talking about it. And more important than kind of the reader buzz is the concept. We're seeing nostalgia books play really well on the secondary market. We talk about homage covers. We've talked about some of the concepts. We'll talk later about video game kind of concepts. And here you get wax packs. And I said in the Wednesday one, this was my pick for indie cover B variant. If you're a child of the 80s or the early 90s, then you certainly are familiar with the experience of opening up a wax pack. Whether it was baseball cards, football cards, basketball, hockey, Star Wars, Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, any movie, cartoon property, even ridiculous ones, Toxic Avenger, everything under the sun had cards. Garbage Pail Kids. We all remember busting them open. We all remember the gum. And as soon as you look at this cover, you remember that. You remember that feel. The pack kind of has that look of that, of like a Karate Kid trading cards that I remember. So it didn't surprise me that it sold out at retailers. It hasn't had major buzz on the secondary market, but we've seen some above cover sales of it. So it really will depend on whether or not this series has any viability down the road. If it does, I think that's the cover to get.
Right. I like how it says no gum.
Right.
But yeah, speaking of retro, and you talk about Karate Kid, they released the trailer for season 2 of the YouTube Cobra Kai show, right?
Right.
I watched the first season. It was good. I'm interested. I'll watch the second season for sure.
Yeah, I will too. It's one of those things, like, you can't overly judge it. It's a nostalgia thing. It's just fun.
It's funny because you see it from what's his name's lifestyle perspective.
Right.
The bully.
Which if you've ever watched How I Met Your Mother, which was a show that I was a big fan of. The Barney character constantly talked about how the Karate Kid got it wrong, and Billy Zabsik, right, was the real hero of that story. So it's been kind of interesting to kind of get a show through that theory and perspective. So I think it's real fun. It's just a fun watch. It's kind of silly, but
yeah. Keeping with nostalgia.
Check out. Yep.
The next one on the list, the Double Jumpers #3 homage, right? It's like an old Nintendo case homage cover.
Right, and we talked about the crossover with video games and comics is serious. It's very similar to what we see with wrestling and comics, maybe stronger even. Anything within that realm of nerd culture, and I mean that with the kind of like the biggest compliment. Anything within nerd culture that kind of allows you to jump between genres, no pun intended on the title of the book, seems to do well. So you get that same nostalgia feel. Whether you were invested in this book, which there has been some solid reader buzz on the book, but whether you were invested in the book or not, the cover alone, this is another cover art pickup where somebody can be walking down the aisle of covers at their LCS and just grab it just on cover art alone. It certainly stood out in previews, kind of right off the page because of the cover art. Like we talked about it last week. At this point, I'm hedging my bet. I'm grabbing a few covers of any of these type of homages that are being released because the market is grabbing them. And they're being printed in low quantity.
And I like picking them up just because that nostalgia factor for me to have it. And right. I kept wondering because I go, this looks so familiar. And I think Peter Reyna just put it in the chat, man. It's like basically an homage to Ghosts and Goblins. And once he said that, it's like, yes, that's what it is. So definitely, and to be honest, I never even knew about this book. And then once I saw the cover, I went and read the solicit, and I want to go back and read the other 2 issues because basically, guys that create the game, the characters end up coming out of the game, and then they bring like the villain from the game with them, and they have to battle them out. It's kind of like, well, I want to say
Last
it's kind of like
action
Time
hero,
Bandits.
kind of a little last action hero kind of
Yeah.
thing. So definitely, I think it's very adaptable. I know we use that term a lot, and I know that a lot of things get optioned. But I tend to think positively that yes, a lot of things get optioned, but you can kind of read a book. And again, that's where reading comes in, and you can tell what books really have potential, not just to get optioned, but to be something once they're optioned. And the premise of this book at least lends to something that would be very cool.
Right. And F you, Nick, because he just said that he's reordering some from Diamond. So that's probably going to be another slab I buy off his site just to
I
have for
literally
nostalgia.
I literally just commented Bolo on that Slabbed Heroes Double Jumpers future offer because you know that's coming. But again, that's why Nick at Slabbed Heroes is awesome because you're not going to see too many retailers with the foresight to say, you know what, I need to jump on that Double Jumpers homage variant.
Yeah. So, moving right along into the variant buzz, this is one that even until, like I said, I was in Virginia Beach for work. I had no idea anything about this, and I saw it, and I thought it was like a freaking joke at first because I was like, I had no idea about this title. I thought it was like a Bill and Ted's thing, but we got Ziggy Pig, Silly Seal, but this is the secret variant, right? Because the first one had I forgot what the name was on there, but the secret variant has Creek, and then there's an emoji on there, correct?
Correct. Yes, you got the poop emoji. So yeah, so kind of like if you're not familiar with the Ziggy Pig character, I'll give you kind of like a brief history. The Ziggy Pig is a Timely Comics character. Timely Comics is what eventually became Marvel Comics. I think he first appeared in comics in like 1939. Comedy character. You may have heard Brian just made the Bill and Ted's reference. What a lot of us of a certain age remember is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. There was a very famous scene with Napoleon. And the sticker that gets put on him is actually Ziggy Pig. It is the pig from this issue. What they are referencing is the Timely Comics character. So at that point, that character had kind of not been used. It wasn't, probably not something they were worried about getting sued for. But we've gotten a recent reemergence with Ziggy Pig showing up in Deadpool within Marvel continuity and hiring Deadpool for a mission. So kind of keeping and with that and playing off of that, Marvel released a one-shot, and this kind of goes in line with their 80th anniversary one-shots where we've gotten kind of the genre-specific one-shots. They released a B and a C cover very similar, so you got a Young Gun cover and another kind of cover B variant cover. Both of those covers sold out. I think if it wasn't for the secret variant, we'd be here today talking about the cover B and the cover C being sold out. But the secret variant took all buzz off those other covers. So, we've seen this before with like the Venom 9 tongue. We saw it with Avengers 682 with the Hawkeye mask. I don't think Ziggy Pig will have the long-term spec that those two issues have, because obviously those two issues also now have become important because of the cameo appearances of Dylan Brock in Venom and Immortal Hulk in the Avengers. But we've seen prices spike to as high as $30 already on Ziggy Pig. And it was a secret variant, so retailers weren't aware of it. It is something to keep an eye out. I don't think too many retailers heavily ordered Ziggy Pig. But if you see this comic on shelves, it's worth at least looking for that poop emoji on the map.
Now, do they have like a set? I forget. Is there a set ratio for secret variants? Because I know at one time I was like, 1 and 7 for the Avengers. Was it 682 or 680 with the Hawkeye mask?
Yeah, they don't ever publicize a ratio. We usually get an idea of ratio after larger retailers receive the books. From what I am hearing about 1 in 10, but we also hear from retailers who ordered as little as like 12 that didn't get any. So
Right.
it's always kind of tough. I know that's something that we talked about that with Milgeek Comics is Russ Bright from the Hot 10 videos. He oftentimes he has a small shop, although he just moved to a beautiful multi-room facility with a warehouse and everything. He's very sharp, but he has a smaller shop, and he has a lot of smaller orders. Kind of just takes care of subscribers, and oftentimes he'll get left out of a lot of these books. So the true ratio of these books we don't know. It seems to be about 1 in 10. The funny thing is, 1 in 10 variants in the market would never pop like this to this level unless there was some like major cover art attached. So I just think this secret thing is a gimmick that gets buzz and it's working. So we will most likely see Marvel go to this well again.
Yeah, this Ben in the chat said it was a 1 in 10, so we'll see. So, moving on, next in our brain list, this is one of my favorite books this week, and that was the Star Wars Vader Vision, Dark Visions #1. This was the 1 in 50 Giuseppe Camuncoli, right?
Yeah, you did a heck of a job with that.
Yeah, one thing, like the Darth Vader, a lot of the Camuncoli covers for Darth Vader titles are always fantastic. Like, I think it was a regular cover he did for the last Vader series that had like the big zoomed in headshot of the Darth Vader with that freaking broken and cracked mask. But this was one that I took and then I edited up on IG and kind of animated and got some comments like, "Where did you get that?" But 1 in 50, it's a mini series. I think it's a 5-issue mini series. And
Yeah.
you actually see, it's supposed to be like Darth Vader is actually the good guy in this series, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of told through his eyes. He kind of has to
Cobra
fight
Kai.
kind of a bigger, badder bad guy. The spec on this series is very similar. You can take what we've talked about with some of the IDW series, where you have it kind of put it on steroids because there's just nothing bigger than Star Wars. But you take something like a Star Wars, G.I. Joe, and the Ninja Turtles, these properties that people grew up on. And even if they're kind of off the beaten path miniseries, there are so many completionists that have to have every Vader book or every Star Wars book. And speculators have started to figure out that they exist. And retailers haven't really caught up yet. And also, I don't think it always makes sense for the retailer to order so many books just to chase the incentive. It's one thing if an incentive, a 1 in 50 hits like $100. But, for a retailer to pay upwards of $100 to get 50 covers of a book just to get an incentive that's going to sell for $60, that doesn't always play out if they can't sell the regular books. So some of these miniseries tend to get under-ordered. A lot of us saw this one coming in advance. We've seen sales right at about $55, $60 for this book, which is solid. It's above ratio. Didn't pop the way some of the other Star Wars have, but this one I think was a little more on speculators' radar. And I think the Vader series tend to be a little higher print than some of the other miniseries. But I think these books may drop a little bit short term, but just won't drop much long term and will only go up as they dry up. Because these are not books that are going to get flipped from speculator to speculator's hand, like happens with a lot of variants, which is why you see variants like the Gamora Matina variant start to drop. Because it gets to a point where there's no collector that wants that book to put in their collection for the current price. I think that is not the case with Star Wars. The people who are buying these books are collectors. When you sell this book, you're selling this to a Star Wars diehard who's probably not going to turn that book around, therefore taking a copy off of the market.
So I think that investing in high ratio Star Wars variants, especially ones that are off of the beaten path, outside of the radar of the typical speculator and retailer, is a solid spec play right now. We've seen it play out time and time again. It's a move that Adam Lebednik often talked about in the Wednesday one prior to us taking it over. And it's one that I think has been both on myself and Brian's radar over past weeks. Both of us talked about picking up this book pre-release. So this is a one that's been kind of on people's radar.
Right. And if you take the spec out of the equation, the way some people love the Matina cover for the Thrawn, right, which was similar
Right.
to the Gamora. The people that bought it, yeah, it was a great spec book, but some people bought it just for the love of Matina and the love of the character. That's kind of one reason why I picked this up, just because it's Vader and Giuseppe Camicoli usually does great art for him. So this is the main reason why I pre-ordered the book as well. Now I did have it on the Wednesday one as my spec pick, just because I think it's a great book, and I think down the road I think it might fall off, and then everything you just said, I think it might pick up, especially with diehard Star Wars collectors, and we'll also see how this miniseries does.
Right, and I'm real bullish on Star Wars going forward. We saw that Disney announced that all the Star Wars movies are going to be on the Disney Plus app. That's just going to expose so many young fans to Star Wars. Characters like Darth Vader are going to live forever. We're going to see more miniseries on the Disney Plus app. I think it's highly likely we will see some sort of series from kind of the dark side of things. So whether it's a Vader series or a Kylo Ren series or Snoke or something else, I think we will definitely see that. Another thing to keep an eye out for is the Star Wars Moments variants, I think they're called, that are coming out. The cover Bs that debuted with Star Wars 62. I think there are some of those covers that are selling out. There's a Gronoff one coming out that looks like it's going to be popular. I think there were a lot of people that collected the 40th anniversary sets. I know we saw Gary Nusser in the chat saying he got kind of fatigued from it, but there were a lot of people that put those sets together. A lot of people that are putting the action figure variants together. And as we said, Star Wars collectors are fanatical. They buy to keep, and they buy to complete. So those moments, I think, are something to keep an eye out for, because if collectors really start to kind of get a groundswell and they're putting those sets together down the road, some of those early issues that came out and kind of were under ordered could end up popping in price. So really keep a look on that. The first one debuted this week with Star Wars number 62.
Right. So moving into the next on the list, we talked about the title earlier, but we didn't go into the variant that much, and that was the Domino Hot Shots J. Scott Campbell incentive variant, right? This to me was one of those typical ones where I won't say typical. When I say typical, it's got the Campbell flair to it. That's the incentive that usually does well, especially at the beginning. And as Nick had said in the chat earlier, that they're definitely selling well and going. I think he said up to $100 right now. But I like it. One J. Scott Campbell's hot artist. It's got the whole all-female team on the freaking cover, and 1 in 50. I don't know how many copies comic book stores ordered. I'm sure they might have ordered more than they would have, just because they know Campbell was doing the cover for it. But what's your take on this book?
Right. So I think that my initial feeling on the book was, oh, that's going to be super hot. And then when I started to see some of the pre-orders get jacked up on it, I started to think to myself, well, there is some J. Scott fatigue. And he's done that to himself, because he releases variants himself through his own website, which I don't fault artists for doing, but he's a big fan of those 8-packs. And when you're releasing so much content onto the marketplace, you can kind of overdo it. But I think that this book avoided that. I think it featured some original characters we haven't seen him draw before. He has a tendency to draw the same characters over and over again. We see a lot of that. So you get some different characters here. It's a team book, which is different from some of his other books that he's done. I think he's done some team books actually for Midtown that have been impressive, that are kind of under the radar. But he did this book kind of. There's nothing really. You didn't hear anyone say anything bad about this book. So even the J. Scott haters didn't really pile on this book. And then, there weren't store variants for this book, so it's not one that's going to be over-ordered. Yes, I do think a lot of retailers will follow suit with what Nick did, saying that he ordered 1,000 of this book to get the incentives. I think that there's plenty of people that will do that. I think that judging by where this book is in the secondary market, that move paid off for Nick, for sure, and will continue to. And I think that a book like this, the sky's the limit, to be honest with you, because we've seen books in the past that J. Scott has done that have gotten up to $300, $400. I'm not saying that that's what this book is going to do. I'm saying that we can't really say that it's not going to do that. It's gotten past that initial hump. It's sold out, and it's raising in price rapidly.
I think the fact that it's not one of his web store variants kind of does well.
Exactly. It's not a web store variant. There weren't any other variants made for this book. Any store variants. So you're not competing with a Delato cover. You're not competing with a Granoff cover or a Perillo cover. This is clearly the best cover. And so I think it's kind of a perfect storm with this book.
Wasn't there. I actually think that Gonzalez, the 1 in 25, is actually a nice looking cover for it as well.
I actually completely agree, and I think that it's a sleeper book because
Gary just said as well.
It's funny. I've seen that book cheap too, so that's a book to keep a lookout for, because I think a lot of people, like someone in and I'm not speaking for Nick, but somebody in Nick's situation, who may pick up 1,000 of those books and they're making their money on the Campbells, they're gonna overlook the other variants, and are maybe willing to sell those cheaper. And I think you're going to see some of that, and some of those books may pop. I do agree. The 125 is sharp.
Right. So next in the variant buzz, it was a big week for variants. I mean, there's a lot of good variants out there, but
yeah,
we had the one.
And there's a few not on the list that you could argue for too.
Right. So the 1 in 50 for the Meet the Scrolls, right? Which was the
right.
Nico. I forget the artist's name.
Heinrich. I can't.
I didn't forget.
You there?
Yeah.
You there?
Yep. Lost you for a second.
Did you lose me for a second?
Okay, yeah, you were talking about.
I was rambling on. Can you hear me?
Yeah. The last thing we got was basically this was a 1 in 50.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a 1 in 50. This was kind of the week of the 1 in 50s. We saw 3 1 in 50s pop in the market. You could have bought any of the 3 and you'd be feeling pretty good. All 3 of those books we saw buzz on. This book really had buzz based on the cover art alone. Most people aren't familiar with the artist. I'm not personally familiar with the artist, but the cover art is real striking. It really reminds me of Marco Cicciaretto. I think that originally, I think that's who I thought it was. But we saw this book sell out kind of immediately. It's also, I would venture a guess, a book that's going to be lower printed than the other 2 1 in 25s. I don't know, maybe not with the Vader book, but definitely less than the Hot Shots book. I kind of thought this book might be going for more than the Hot Shots book, because there would be kind of so many of the J. Scott books on eBay post-release, but the demand for that Hot Shots book is so real that copies just keep kind of raising in price. This book we're seeing sell at about $60, so still above ratio. You've got, like we talked about earlier, first appearances in the issue, so you've got something to hedge your bet. There's more reason for this book to pop off later than a lot of other books. But it's not a book that's readily available. Most eBay listings are starting to raise to as high as 180. 80. So, I think the price could end up jumping. The real question is, what's the demand for the book? Will the demand be there? We see people, like I said, raising the prices up on the book, but we need people to buy those books for the price to continue to raise truly on the market. And time will tell whether that will happen. A lot's going to depend on where, like we said, where the series goes. And also another thing is, will this artist follow up with another hit? Because we've seen that in the past. I saw somebody in the chat mention Zaffino. Zaffino's a prime example of an artist who kind of had a hit, and then he put him on everybody's radar, and now books that he's releasing are increasingly being successful and being bought up by speculators consistently now. And I think it's only a matter of time before kind of he raises his profile. So time will tell whether this artist does that or not.
Yep. So next on your list, which we always get people, I would say it's a variant because it's different cover art, but we have a Mortal Hulk 12 second print.
Right. So you can basically plug and play our reader buzz from a couple months ago on Immortal Hulk 12, but now it's kind of gotten on steroids because Immortal Hulk 12 has become a $15, $20 issue. It's a key issue in the series. And we've seen these issues sell out consistently in the series, and we've seen these books go to second, third, fourth prints. We've seen the second prints and third prints pop in the secondary market and become $10, $12 books. I think that a lot of retailers, if it's not a first appearance, if they'll just order a few copies to have for their shelf for their readers who may have missed out. And as those get bought up by speculators, these books disappear. A lot of these later printings have extremely low print runs. And like I said, I'm real bullish on anything Immortal Hulk at cover price. If you can get Immortal Hulk at cover price, and that includes pre-orders and later printings, I think you should do that.
Right. And then moving right along, this was one of my favorite covers, and that was the Mark Brooks Spider-Man Villains variant for Conan number 4, right? Which makes me a hypocrite a lot of times because I keep saying I don't like covers that don't really have anything to do with the story, but I found myself lately over the past few months, especially with some of the battle lines and some of these villains variants, like what was it, Opeña did a Conan against Marvel Villains variant for which book it was, but Mark Brooks, especially with Spider-Man, always does great covers. So this was one you had to qualify for, though, to get, I believe, right?
Right, and that always makes it a little tougher because some of these smaller retailers won't qualify for it.
And then
go ahead.
Some of them, if they do qualify, it's normally regular price, but some of the qualifiers, LCS might raise the price a little bit to $7 or $9. But covers like this, I would buy regardless.
Right, and this is a cover art play. Mark Brooks I think he's underrated. He kind of falls into that Alex Ross kind of category of an artist who just hits a home run kind of every time out. And you've gotten kind of so used to it that he doesn't get almost the respect that he deserves. But the big thing about this book, the thing that has speculators talking, is the cover appearance of Red Goblin.
Yeah.
Why would
not
he
again?
Now, see, you know what? I've talked about that's a big miss for me. I'm literally staring at a short box full of Red Goblin right now. I had to pull it off the shelf to get it out of the way of other stuff. So I'm looking at a short box of Red Goblin right now. So there's a lot of speculators like me who saw this and said, yes. Because there's no way he put Red Goblin on this cover for no reason.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But when he was drawing this cover, he put it on Instagram, and immediately everyone was like, "Oh, is he coming back? Are we getting more?" And it was like started that whole conversation again about the Red Goblin.
And he's a polarizing character. It gets a lot of attention from people, and Marvel knows how to capitalize on that. But yeah, so when I saw that, I said, okay, maybe it's not dead spec. Maybe we're going to see. We've actually already seen ASM 798 spike because of this cover. I'm telling you, the spike that we've currently seen, I know it's on the top 10 trends that coverprice.com, they posted their top 10 trends. They tagged us in it. And it is one of their top 10 trends is ASM 798. It's not moving for money, but it's moving. Copies are moving, and speculators are picking it up. I'm telling you straight up because of this Mark Brooks cover. And it's probably, honestly, one of the best renditions of Red Goblin we've seen because Brooks absolutely killed it.
but definitely a great one. Like I said, it made me a hypocrite about buying covers. They don't have anything to do with the story, but yeah. Next is one of Jack's favorite books ever, and that's his
Yes.
My Little Pony 1 in 10 for number 75, right?
Right. Bring on the hate right now.
Brony.
Yeah, I know. I knew somebody was going to say that. The truth is, I know nothing about My Little Pony, but I have two daughters,
Yep.
and I have two daughters who have grown up to be My Little Pony fanatics. The amount of money that I have spent on My Little Pony products over the years is insane, and that's the point. Is I'm aware of the popularity of the property in general. The negative I'd say about this book is the absolute boring cover art. If this thing had some cool cover art, you might see a better immediate pop. The book is selling for $15 to $18, which is above the 1 in 10 ratio. At ratio price, obviously being about $10. There, and as we've talked about here on the Bolo live stream, one of my favorite things with IDW variants is the frequency that you can pick them up for cover price and below, certainly below ratio. But this is a 75th anniversary issue. It features the solicit of a new character. I don't know if the new character appeared or not. I'm not going to read the issue, so I don't know. I'll probably do some Google searches to find out. But this is a long-term play. If the G.I. Joe book wasn't out this week, it would be my long-term play. Because it's the 75th issue, there's a lot of people who put this set together. I've had conversations with a lot of larger retailers. Larry Doherty from Larry's Comics is one who's a big My Little Pony advocate who's talked about, you put a box of My Little Pony books out at a convention and it disappears. People buy the books up. So I know that there is a demand there, and I know that demand comes from a lot of different places. It comes from dads buying for kids. It comes from women who are nostalgic for a toy that they played for when they were children, the same way, Brian, you and I are for Masters of the Universe. And it also comes from the brony category, which I don't necessarily understand, but I don't judge other people's fandoms. I feel like, people's fandoms tend to be like what goes on in their bedroom. I have a don't ask, don't tell policy with it. Whatever you're into, that's what you're into. And as a speculator, I am down to make money on whatever it is that you like. And the interesting thing about this book is it had a $7.99 cover price. So you're talking about a property that's not heavily ordered by LCSs. There is a demand there. And you're talking about double the cover price. So the average shop had to pay upwards of $40 to get their hands on one copy of the 1 in 10. So I think
double issue or
double it.
Square bound or regular?
Thick. I haven't seen the book personally. I ordered some of the 1 in 10s. I ordered full disclosure. I ordered a few of the 1 in 10s because I definitely think that it's going to have some long-term play. But I haven't seen the book enough to tell you. But it's a double book. I don't know. Grading would be tough on it. I don't know if there's really a market for My Little Pony graded books. But it's not. I think because of the sheer cost, you're not going to see stores order it heavily. And also, if I'm as a parent, just thinking, if you bring your kids to go buy a comic at the store, you're going to kind of avoid that $8 comic. You're going to avoid that big one. And it's as an incentive on a double issue, a lot of stores are going to charge more. So I think the only reason this hasn't popped more is I think the copies that were available got picked up by speculators because there was some buzz on this book. Andy from the Indie Spotlight series also talked about this book. I had a conversation with Mel V from the Unpressable Defects several weeks ago about this book. So this is a book that people have known about. So I think you have to get kind of past those low-hanging copies. But there's only six copies on eBay. And it's like every other IDW property. They will dry up. The fans will buy them. They'll sit in collections. And prices will raise. Once it gets to a point that there aren't a bunch listed for sale, you can kind of charge what you like. And what I'll probably do with my 3 that I have is stick them in a box and forget about them until one day I check eBay and there's done listed on eBay. And I have a short box with about half filled with different My Little Ponies incentives that I've bought for various reasons that I haven't gotten around to doing anything with, that at some point I've got to do something with, because if I die, somebody's going to find me with a box of My Little Pony comics and they're not going to know what to think.
Yeah, so A. Borrego, hope I said his name right, 1977, did put in the chat that it is square bound.
There you go.
So, yeah, I was curious because usually issues like that, a lot of times square bound, which I think it might make it a little bit easier for double issue, like is that, was it the Spider-Man 700? Some of the Spider-Man books that are thicker that weren't square bound and that crappy Marvel paper. So
yeah, that's the one thing I'll give IDW. They do a little better job. Almost everybody does a better job with paper than Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel's like when you go to like the hotels or the restaurants and you go to the bathroom and they use that crappy toilet paper.
Right.
But
that -1 ply.
Yeah, last one we got for the variant buzz. This was the 4th print for Middle West. I think I looked. If you're going off Comic-Con, which everyone's like, oh, that's not real print run numbers, but to me, it's closest thing you kind of have. I think Middle West was what the 3rd print was somewhere around like 5,000. I imagine this will be a little bit less. And this book is another one that's Scotty Young writing, right? It's freaking starting to take off.
Yeah, you're seeing serious buzz. This is another one. I'm an advocate. Go buy it up the ladder. It's probably time to go ahead and pay, the slightly inflated prices for the first prints, because when you start getting to a point that you're on the 4th print and the 4th print is an instant sellout, the buzz for this series is so strong. Scotty Young, a lot of people don't like his art, so you tend to hear a lot of negative talk. But if you've ever... Go ahead.
I like his art, but I'm not a huge fan of the baby variant stuff, but it's got a niche, right? But I do like a lot of his other art.
The baby thing was cool like 6 years ago, but it's 7 years ago. But it's like at this point, it's like, oh my Lord. And I don't blame Marvel for continuing to do them because they do make money for them. Yeah. And what I was gonna say is, if you go to a big convention where Scotty Young's at, you get it instantly, because his demand at a convention outweighs most anybody on the market. And I'm talking Neil Adams and Steranko and the big boys. And his line tends to be women, young people. It's very diverse.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely a lot of female fans of his style.
Tons. I sell a ton of Scotty Young variants to women collectors. One of my favorite things to buy, we talk about clearance buys, is dollar Scotty Young variants. If you can buy Scotty Young variants for $1, a lot of times they're great, easy flips for $5-6 at conventions, $9.99 on eBay, and you can still make a few bucks margin. It's a lot of work for a little bit of money, but you can do it. And Scotty Young signed books always do really well. Even ungraded signed books can command $20-25 on the market. And he's pretty good about signing books. He'll sign for free within reason. But yeah, he always draws a huge line. And he always is in high demand. So we talked about this a couple of weeks ago that, somebody like Netflix is going to snap up a Scotty Young and start doing something with his, properties, whether it's I Hate Fairyland, Middle West, some of these properties. So I think this series is proven at this point, its validity being at a 4th print, being another sellout, and it's time to jump on board of this series. So if you see any cover price copies of issue number 1 in any printing, I would grab them. And I think it's time to put a few number 1s aside at whatever the current market rate is on that book. Look for the cheapest possible copies you can get in near mint, grab them, sock them away, because I think that it's only a matter of time before the first print really explodes.
Right. So that's going to wrap us up for Variant Buzz. Like we said, there was a lot of variants out this week. Some that you probably could have even made the case to put on the list. But as always, the last thing we always run into is good old Jack's long-term play spec. I'm going to put this up and I'm going to let you speak your soapbox. Well, soapbox isn't the right word, but here we go. So what we got? We got the G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe yearbook. I believe it's the Diaz 1 in 10 variant. So, if you've watched the show before, you know how I feel about G.I. Joe. You know how I feel about IDW incentives. And this one plays right into it. It is a 1 in 10 variant. So it's not the 1 in 25 like the Murat Michaels G.I. Joe Sierra Muerte, which is why you don't see the immediate pop in the market. But there is a couple sales of this book. It's going for about 25 or 25 plus shipping, so upwards of 30. It's only 2 listed on eBay, one for 20, one for 25. So you're at double ratio. You don't see G.I. Joe books pop double ratio that early. The Sierra Muerte thing, that tends to happen because you've got a 125, where it's even rare. But the reason why I think this 110 will eventually pop the way a lot of 125s do is because of what the book is. It's a yearbook. It is a G.I. Joe has always done these yearbooks dating back to their Marvel days. It kind of tells a bunch of stories that have been popular over the years, summarizes things. This was a big year for G.I. Joe. We had the introduction of a new character, Dawn Moreno, who then became Snake Eyes, a female Snake Eyes. It was a real rejuvenation of story of G.I. Joe. Larry Hama, the original writer of G.I. Joe, was behind it and very active on social media talking about how excited he was and how this series rejuvenated him. So the incentive, you get to see Snake Eyes, you get to see Dawn Moreno as Snake Eyes. It's kind of a cool painted style cover. And I think it's a cover that's going to dry up. You're going to see the copies that are available for sale disappear. And you are going to see, as over time, as copies hit the market, the price continue to increase on the book. It's a tried and true fact with these types of properties. So if you're able to pick up this book for 10, 12, 15 bucks, I think it's a good buy. Would I buy it at the eBay price right now and sock it away? I feel like you'll make money on it, but you'd have to be patient. And patience and speculators don't always go hand in hand. But if you can find this at your LCS for ratio, I would certainly grab it. I bought a few of them. I'm always on top of this IDW stuff. I'm always on top of this G.I. Joe stuff because I'm a fan. I know what the fandom is, and I know the way people tend to buy these books. I also think this is a cool cover. Another cover to look out for in this series. It's interesting that cover A sold out at Midtown, but cover B by Tommy Lee Edwards, which features Duke, is kind of a super cool cover. It real reminiscent of the card backs on the original Kenner G.I. Joe figures. And Tommy Lee Edwards is an artist who had some popularity in the past, but he's very synonymous with G.I. Joe and G.I. Joe variants. So that's another one to kind of keep an eye out for. I could see that one being kind of a $10 book.
Right. So long-term play. That's going to wrap up our Bolo list recap. I got up on the screen the graphic for Nick Dortman, who's been in the chat, slabbedheroes.com. He's the one that helps sponsor this show, does fantastic giveaways. Also, the plan is to have him live on this show next week with us. So we're going to have him one way or another, even if we have to go the old school Google Hangouts way and just have the conversation. The plan is to have him on here, third window up in the corner, be able to display the books like we've been doing. I think it'll be a great show, especially seeing his perspective, and he can speak a little bit about slabbedheroes.com, what he's got coming down the pike for his website. I know he's getting ready to go to C2E2, so he's got a bunch of good stuff there. And yeah, it's been a week. Sorry, I've kind of been out of it at Virginia Beach working. Thanks, Jack, for pretty much holding us down tonight. But I'll let you.
No, my pleasure. That's what teams are for.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let you have the closing announcement before we head out of here. Anything you want to say?
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. I think that what makes this show great is what's going on in the chat. I think the chat adds to the show. I think we're building a great community. I appreciate everybody's hard work. Make sure you guys like the video, share the video, subscribe. Those types of things help us get kind of recognition and move up in the kind of the YouTube algorithm landscape, and help us bring in new viewers, and we definitely appreciate that. And be sure to head to simplemanscomics.com. Brian's not going to make this pump for himself, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. So head to simplemanscomics.com. If you click on the tab in the corner, head to the merch store. Get some of this great Simpleman's Comics merch. He's got a lot of stuff available in there, multiple designs and logos. He's got hats, he's got hoodies, he's got t-shirts. So if you're a big fan of the channel, if you want to support the channel, we greatly appreciate the super chats. But another thing is go ahead and hit up the website and grab some merch from Brian. I did it this week, and I suggest you guys do too.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. I've never been good at. I always feel like I'm begging when I try to promote stuff, but thanks. I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, Nick's asking a good question. And Nusser, what's his go-to bourbon? But either way, with that being said, we're gonna let you guys go for the night. Look forward to Nick Dortmund. Make sure you check out Slabbed Heroes, and to roll us out tonight, I'm gonna replay the trailer for our new article up on comicbookinvest.com, and that's the new Wednesday 1 article that is very volatile. We got good stuff.
But we're excited about it.
Yes.
So be sure to check us out every Wednesday morning. Make sure all of you guys on Simpleman's Comics and Bolo Nation come check us out. Come support us in the article because we've got some big plans planned for that article. We're hoping for big things.
Yes, definitely. Because a lot of the stuff people ask for, it's hard to, I won't say hard to do, but between weekly picks, Bolo list, this show, we don't want to put the same thing over and over and over again and a bunch of different, because then it just doesn't go well. So we try to different flair on different things and still get good information out. But with that being said, I'm going to roll out here with the trailer for it. Nick, we look forward to having you on the show next week. And you guys have a great night.